Hi, I'm Jean Ann Duckworth, and today's word is compassion. I didn't mean to do a series on this, and in a way, it's kind of a building project, but I'm not sure exactly what order things go in. But I did an episode where I talked about fellowship, and that's basically socializing within the group to build relationships, especially within the church. Some people seem to think that coffee hour after church is unnecessary, and I pointed out the fact that it was an integral part of the early church. It says so right in Acts 2. Then I talked about hospitality, the environment we create when somebody new comes into the group. Are we welcoming? Do we make them feel comfortable? Do we put them at ease? Do we make assumptions that there are certain things they should know and understand, even though they'd never been part of this before? How would they know it's okay to walk up to the table and take a cup of coffee and a donut and go sit down somewhere? Perhaps there's a special procedure, even though everybody else seems to be flocking to the donuts. Today I wanted to talk about compassion. The whole idea of this is in the church or within any group, you want to build relationships. You want to strengthen that group. You want to maintain it. And one of the ways you do that is by showing compassion towards the people who are there. You need to let people know that you see them, that you know that they're there, and that when they aren't there, you know that too. Now, I am in no way advocating for going down the list and calling up everybody within the church that didn't show up at Sunday service and asking them, where were you? That's not what this is about. When I was in seminary, which has been quite a while ago, it was right after George Barna started doing marketing within the church. I know it was really new because whenever I talked about him, there were some people within the church that scoffed it. They thought it was ridiculous that you had to market for the church. But this was right at the time when people, especially the late boomers like myself, and then the next generation, the busters, they were not loyal to specific denominations. In other words, for a long time, if your parents were Baptist, you were Baptist. If your parents were Methodist, you were Methodist, and so on. That wasn't the case with a newer generation. Now this, we're talking 20, 30 years ago. Instead, we actually shopped for churches. And I remember sitting in a session meeting, a meeting of elders, the ruling board in a Presbyterian church, and talking about the fact that people shopped for churches and they were insulted that someone would do that. And I looked at him and I said, do you shop for a car? If your dad drove a Chevy, do you drive a Chevy? Or because there have been changes over the years, do you go out and you look at the different cars and the options they have? Do you shop around and look for the best car to suit your needs? Well, yeah, there were some that drove a car because it's what they'd always driven, but some of them understood what I was saying in that regard. And I said, why in the world would you put more care and more thought into the car you choose than you would into the church you attend? The church that's responsible not only for your spiritual life, but the spiritual life and development of your children. People are looking for a place where they can grow and where that makes a difference in their life, and in my opinion, ultimately where they can make a difference. One of the things that Barna found in his early research is he would ask people if he was looking for people who used to attend church but don't go anymore. And he wanted to know why. What caused you to stop going to church? And it was interesting. The majority of people responded that they had gone for a while. These were people who maybe didn't quite grow up in the church. So it wasn't the habit it was for many people at that time, for some people at that time at least. They had started going to church and they were going regularly. And from time to time, something happened where they couldn't attend. And then eventually something happened where maybe they weren't there for a couple weeks. And it dawned on them one day that when they didn't attend, no one seemed to notice. Now, they didn't want to be pestered and quizzed on why they didn't attend, but they wanted someone to check in and make sure everything was okay, that there wasn't a problem. And nobody ever did that. And the way Barna put it was, people will begin to realize that if you don't know when they're missing, it means you don't know when they're there. So why bother going at all? That's sad. It's sad to think that a church in particular, but any organization, wouldn't be able to keep track of the fact that people aren't there and check up and make sure everything's okay. And I know many churches, I know my church has a little pad we sign so that they know who's there. And if your church does it, there should be a follow-up. You know, I noticed you were there. I just wanted to check in and make sure everything was okay. Is there anything we can do for you? Let you know we're thinking about you. Whatever. Something that doesn't put them on the spot. You also have to pay attention when they're there. You say hi to people. You ask them how they're doing. You ask them what's new. You ask people if you can pray for them. If somebody tells you they've been sick, I'm sorry, may I pray for you? I just hiccuped. I apologize. May I pray for you? May I put you on our prayer list? I ask people that all the time. We have a prayer list we send out. May I put you on the prayer list? You have to know when they're there. You have to see them. You have to pay attention to them. You have to talk to them. You have to talk to their children. It's about compassion. It's about being there. This is the process. You know, you have a welcoming environment. You do things that helps build, strengthen the relationships between people. You work to show that you care, that they're there, and even more important, that you're concerned when they aren't there. It really doesn't take much. It doesn't take much effort at all. And once you get in the habit of doing it, it's so easy you begin to wonder, why wasn't I doing this all the time? But it goes a long way with people, and it lets them know you really care about them and that you're there for them. I'm Jean Ann Duckworth, and today's word is compassion.